Hi everyone, I'm Zen, your astrologer, and welcome to your horoscope for the week of March the 15th, 2021. We have a really active sky with a lot of important energy shifts taking place next week, where a lot of important power players changing signs gradually one after another. So this will definitely create an inner change, the way we feel, the way we perceive everything. And this energy is most relevant from a psychological perspective because we are exiting slowly but surely the watery, misty, and of course sometimes confusing energy of Pisces and embracing the way more active, action-oriented, self-oriented, and instinctual sign of Aries. Now this Pisces season was really intense for a lot of people, and of course, as I've been saying in my previous horoscopes, it is a dual sign, it is a mutable sign. So some people experience the most elevated qualities of Pisces, as in spirituality, going deep within ourselves and feeling at home, safe there, navigating deep within ourselves, our feelings, achieving clarity, recalling the past and giving it a totally different new sense, as in healing, forgiveness, acceptance. And another side of this energy is of course Venus in Pisces, which added a lot of dreams, romance, optimism, hopes, and idealism to make this energy as beautiful as it can possibly be. Yet for other people who might have experienced the downside of Pisces, well, this opened up a lot of wounds. It also activated the unconscious part of our beings, so a lot of memories, especially painful memories, traumas, everything that, was a dark chapter in our past resurfaced and we had to process it. Some people had to relive it. Some people had very unsettling dreams, etc. So basically this was the duality of the Pisces season. Like other people, for example myself, experienced both of these sides almost at the same time. And even though I cannot say that this energy will immediately shift, because just as we step into the week on Monday, well, we're still going to have a Venus, Neptune, and Sun conjunction, and we're also straight after the impact of Saturday's new moon in Pisces, so this energy will be still extremely active, and chances are that it's really relevant for anything karmic that has to take place in our lives. May that be, communication from people from the past. May that be us finding how we feel truly deeply about certain situations that happened in the past. Something about ourselves, other people, and of course our deepest dreams, wishes, desires, the kind of desires which are on a soul level, so they have to do with the energy of Pisces. So the beginning of the week is still going to be really active and intense in this sense, especially that the Sun is in the last decan of Pisces, so that means that if anything has to happen of karmic nature, for example closures, us being able to understand something, process it, even on a soul level, whenever that happens, that is a kind of closure, a closure that we enact ourselves. There is that saying, as within, so without. So as soon as we enable it on a soul level, it will naturally manifest in the outer reality as well. But of course, if you'd like to know more or in greater detail about this heavily concentrated Piscean energy, just listen back to last week's horoscope and also last week's midweek astrology update with the new moon in Pisces, and it will give you a pretty good picture of what to expect and how the reminiscence of this energy can still play out in our lives. Now, at the same time, we still have the ongoing Mars and Saturn trine conversation of supreme harmony, which is action-oriented. It is all about communication, self-expression, using the power of your intellect, your mind, to get things done or to reach out and find people who you need in your life for any reason. And this energy is like a crescendo. At the beginning of the week, it's still not very strong. It will get stronger and more influential by the end of the week, perfecting on the 22nd of March. But it will be at the end of the week when it will manifest as concrete action, as enforcing our choices and decisions with action, with attitude, with everything of Martian nature, as in willpower, self-expression, communication, making that choice and communicating it very clearly, irreversibly. And Saturn, of course, is also manifestation, so that can also be a moment when our actions have an impact. For example, the work or sacrifice, time and energy that we have invested into something will come to fruition, or at least the information or the time of when it will come to fruition will enter our awareness. So that can mean good news, that can mean communication, signing contracts, and when a contract is signed, so the agreement is already in existence, and the contract can have terms, it can have dates, it can have relevant elements which help you anticipate the future and how it is going to be playing out next. But at the beginning of the week, we also have another very important energy, which I do believe simply completes or complements this not yet perfected Mars and Saturn trine, and that is Mercury out of shadow in an erratic degree of Aquarius. When a planet is in an erratic degree, meaning 29 degrees of a sign, its symbolism, its power, its influence is greatly amplified. And with Mercury, planet of the mind, well, that can mean choices are going to be made. That can mean that we will know what to do next. That can mean that we already processed information, communication. We have a pretty clear picture in our minds. For example, towards our future plans, whatever we wanted to accomplish, whatever we needed additional information with, or simply said just clarity in everything, an overall sense of clarity that we mentally, intellectually have things under control and at least can anticipate, at least we can have a valid and working, grounded, down-to-earth picture about what we're going to do in the future. Of course, this energy is also good for contracts because we will know what we can accept, what we can work with. But of course, also knowing what we cannot accept, what is not good, not ideal, it won't work for us personally. That is also massive help because at least we know what to eliminate from our lives and especially our minds, our mental sphere, our future plans. And whenever we eliminate something, something else will take its place. And also, if you were someone who struggled with communication or the evolution of official matters, paperwork of any kind, for example, communication with banks, institutions, a third-party situation in business-wise or professionally, at the beginning of February, well, this can be the time when you achieve clarity and you will know exactly what to do, or you will get a very clear and straightforward reply from authorities, or if you have like legal cases, anything that has to do with courts of justice, not in the sense of a final ruling, because that is more like Jupiter's domain, but simply a sense of direction, clarity, the next step. Well, The beginning of the week, when Mercury is in an erratic degree of Aquarius, can be a really, really good period for you to simply ground yourself in concrete, down to earth information and know where you stand from. The next day, the 16th of March, we're going to have the first very important energy shift where Mercury leaves the sign of Aquarius and enters the sign of Pisces. Now, this energy might not be comfortable for everyone because Mercury cannot bring forward its highest qualities in the sign of Pisces. It is in fall, or in other words, it is debilitated. But of course, this doesn't have to mean anything bad or negative, even if it might be somewhat uncomfortable for certain people. And the reason for this is quite logical from an astrological perspective, of course. Now just think about Mercury, the planet of the mind, communication, words, and of course travels as well. Our basic cerebral activities. So just like the mind, Mercury likes to be quick, it likes to be efficient, it likes to make connections very, very quickly, efficiently. For example, in the sign of Virgo, it's nighttime ruling signs, while Mercury is extremely powerful and efficient because it can just think of solutions to almost any problem. Or in its daytime expression, the sign of Gemini, Mercury can very quickly communicate and find people who have the solutions to the problem, for example. But in the sign of Pisces, Mercury feels like it is imprisoned in the watery world of the unconscious mind. So this is where it cannot tap into its rationality, it cannot tap into its linear logic, it cannot bring forward its, let's say, Uranian side. And when I say Uranian, well, Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, which means that Mercury has also an ingenious, visionary, future-oriented kind of quality to it, not as strong and proficient as Uranus, of course, but still, in very many cases, it functions the same way. Just think about that the internet, which is humanity's collective consciousness manifested, as in a huge data bank of everything that has to do with our species, but ultimately it is information, it is thought stored in the ether. And when the time the internet was invented and it became part of our lives, it was ruled by Uranus because it was the next, the new, the revolutionary way of doing things. But as time passed, well, it became so very common, it was like an essential part of our everyday lives that its rulership was passed down to Mercury because we work with it every single day of our lives. So it is Mercury which governs it. At least the practical and the everyday use part of the internet. What all of this has to do with Mercury being in the sign of Pisces, well, the sign of Pisces is not really future oriented. It is the past, it is even past lives, it is the unconscious mind, or it also has a very timeless quality to it. In spirituality there is no time, or time isn't linear. So Mercury in this part of the sky isn't only trapped a little bit, but it can also be so very confused because it cannot see the linear and logical side of things. But of course, this energy is more uncomfortable for those people who are extremely rational and logical, who need to just simply know how to make sense of everything. But for those people who are very familiar with the non-linear logic, those who embody emotional intelligence, those who are in a spiritual field of activity, those who are in a medical profession, for example, Because, healers, let's say doctors, nurses, researchers, everyone who works in healthcare, well, their work is rational and linear, of course, but that is where they have to do a lot of investigation. They have to make sense of things which at first hand don't appear rational, logical, etc. Like a person has symptoms and they don't know what causes it. That's why they have to go to analysis, laboratories, blood tests, exams, etc. So Mercury in the sign of Pisces kind of rules the medical profession, it rules hospitals, it rules investigations and checkups regarding health, medical history, even forensic science, blood chemistry, and research, but not necessarily where we come up with something new, because that is more like Mercury in the sign of Scorpio. It is like the research that we already have being applied, being tested. So Mercury in the sign of Pisces is very good for medical investigations, just that it is extremely slow and meticulous. So that doesn't mean that you're going to have the solution to all of your problems, health problems immediately. It just means the beginning. It just means, for example, being able to eliminate everything that is not the problem and then searching further, deeper. It can mean like those medical professionals who are working on a case, deciding what the best course of action is. So they have to consult each other. So that's why all of this process is pretty slow, and it has to be slow because, someone's life and physical well-being depends on it. Mercury in the sign of Pisces also rules prisons, isolation, confinement, even social distancing, not being able to travel freely or go where it is that you wish to go. So each time Mercury enters the sign of Pisces, from certain perspectives, it can feel like a mini Mercury retrograde season, because it is all about the past, resolving past issues. Now, if you think about medical investigations and hospitals, well, you're actually looking also at the past, what causes the imbalance, the illness, disease, the medical history, etc. If you think about prisons, well, someone had to do something very bad in the past in order to end up in prison. But like every energy, it also has a very good side to it. So this is where artists, people who enjoy solitude, people who don't really like to be very social, people who find a lot of comfort in isolation, but not in a strictly physical sense, just that they're okay with themselves and they don't like to have a lot of other people, a lot of communication, a lot of disturbance in their lives. For those people, it is actually quite a good and comforting energy. And, Mercury, the planet of the mind, when it's confined, it's not as hyperactive. We process and perceive fears and insecurities in a totally different way, where it is more like unconscious. So that means that it is just a feeling which we might not even be able to rationalize, and people with a strong emotional intelligence can just navigate through this very efficiently, and of course they can help others. And Mercury in the sign of Pisces is also really good for communicating with people who belong to the distant past. Whenever it traverses the sign of Pisces, this is when certain synchronicities happen, when you bump into an old childhood friend, an old classmate, someone who you used to know. You hear news about certain relatives, for example, who you haven't met for a lot of years, what they're doing, what their lives are like. This is also really good energy when you can simply intuitively, or maybe something, a feeling, your emotion guide you towards figuring out who your karmic connections are in your life, as in people in your life who you were supposed to come across, who you were supposed to meet, who had a lesson for you, or maybe you were the lesson in their lives. It is also a very good energy for secrets to come out. So if someone gossiped you, if someone had questionable intentions, this is the kind of energy when you just find out, it just comes to your awareness. And ultimately, the best way to use this energy is just to trust the divine, the sign of Pisces, or our unconscious minds. If there are problems which we cannot figure out, which we cannot solve, when we don't see the higher meaning of anything in life, we cannot see the logic, the rationality, well, this is where we can just say, well, it doesn't really matter, I just trust. I just allow the universe to guide me, to take care of it. This is when you can just rest your mind. This is when you can simply shut down your overthinking tendencies. This is when you can, for example, just go out in nature and detach yourself from everything. This is when you can silence your mind. And also Mercury in the sign of Pisces, dreams, fantasies, everything that is surreal, everything that is in the borderline between reality and fantasy. So basically it is a really good time to just chill out. For example, to use music, meditation, or everything that comforts you, chills you out, to just relax and take some pressure off your mental sphere. And by this, you're actually activating your intuitive senses and allowing Mercury to activate your non-linear logic, your emotional intelligence. So this can be quite efficient because you can just figure out how other people are processing their feelings, their emotions, why they feel a certain way. In other words, an empathic sense. But in order for you to perceive these empathic signals, you have to shut down an excess of rationality. So you mustn't question certain things, you must just go with the emotional flow. But the truth is, when it comes to down-to-earth matters, for example, like projects, IT work, internet, writing, etc. And when I say writing, this is where data entry or like down-to-earth things, not, artistic writing or poetry, because it's a beautiful and exceptional energy for artistic expressions. But I mean really down to earth things which have to do with information, numbers, figures. Things might go very, very slowly. If you have any kind of online projects, especially the technical side of that might take a lot of time to come together and function as intended. So, Mercury in Pisces always asks us to have a lot of patience. But this is just the beginning of the week, because by the end of the week, Mercury is going to be activated by Uranus, as I said, its higher octave, and that will be something totally different, but I'll speak about it a little bit later on. Now, at the same time, as Mercury enters the sign of Pisces, we have a really strong Plutonian energy in the sky, where Pluto sextile, so it holds a conversation of harmony with the Sun and Neptune. Now this is a truly alchemical energy. Under such a sky, we can turn fantasy, fiction, dreams, illusions into reality. But there is a big condition: we must not get lost in the process. As in, we must hold power over, we must be conscious that we are actually working with this and doing this. So for example, artists know that they're creating art, they are creating fantasy. This is also really good for fated events to enter our lives, because Pluto is also our power. It is where we transform reality. But of course, Neptune and the Sun, we can only work with what we have inside of us, and that means energies, that means emotions, that means feelings, and basically that means using our unconscious mind as a motor, as a alchemical reactor, fueling our desires. It is also a really good aspect for secrets to come out, for us to investigate certain mysteries or whatever we are truly curious about. It is also a really sexual energy when we can simply live out our fantasies, because ultimately Pluto is a very sexual planet, the ruling planet of Scorpio, and Scorpio is physically our sexual organs, but also our drive, our sex drive, so to speak. It is also a really good energy in order to seek treasure, but in a way where either we can be very persuasive, a little bit manipulative, speculative, and just hit the jackpot, but we have to follow our intuition, our senses, and it might actually lead us to some kind of material gain, because Pluto in the sign of Capricorn is earthly material power, as in money. And even though this is a harmonious conversation, so sextile, the sky and the astral energies don't choose sides. This energy can also empower those people who make a dishonest living, those who deceive, those who con. So be very careful with what phone calls, emails, phishing scams, and all those activities which are based on someone's naivety and another person deceiving someone based on what they wanna believe. As in, if it's too good to be true, if you, for example, you get an email saying that you won an incredible amount of money, but it doesn't have any logical, rational element to it, well, just know that it is a deception of some sorts. That is definitely not how the alchemical power of Pluto plays out, because it has to have some kind of logical element to it. For example, if you've entered a competition and you get a phone call that you won, well, that is perfectly clear to you because you have done something down to earth. You have taken an action and entered the competition. But if it comes out of nowhere and if it's way too good to be true, then take it with a pinch of salt and don't fall for it. And as I said, this energy is also one which kind of reveals secrets, but the secrets that Pluto sextile Neptune and the Sun reveals are highly controversial. So even though it's a revelation, it provides a different side to it. It's still not something that we can actually work with. It's still not objective truth. And on the 17th, the Moon is going to conjunct Uranus and square Saturn. And that also means something reaching daylight, a truth shocking us. But chances are that that truth is also controversial in itself, because the shocking element, the shock factor, it's what counts. And people are definitely going to have a strong reaction to it. So this means people taking to the streets. This means protest. This means mediatic warfare where opinions and ideologies just clash with each other. So be careful not to be sucked into the drama, because no matter what on this day, on the 17th, is going to reach daylight, it's still an illusion in itself. So take it with a pinch of salt and don't let it unsettle you. But another expression of this energy might represent some kind of physical activity, because Uranus in the sign of Taurus is the physical crust of the earth. So this can mean earthquake, this can mean unusual weather phenomenon, this can mean volcanic activity, because the moon just pulls not just emotions but also the physical elements with its gravity. So it can be an earthquake either symbolically, political, civil, social earthquake, or it can also be quite a literal one, but chances are it's not gonna be catastrophic or anything which leaves a major impact. On the 18th of the month, Pluto is also going to be sextiling in the same manner it did the Sun and Neptune, Venus in the sign of Pisces. Now, this is also a highly sexual energy. This is dreams, fantasies, desires, obsessions having a grip on us. So, be careful what you wish for, because under this sky, when Pluto holds this kind of conversation with Neptune, Sun, and Venus, whatever you wish for can pop up and become reality, but perhaps not in the way or in the measure, in the form you expect it. It can be something just symbolical, but it can also be extremely real. And even though this is a really good energy for those who are single and looking, because ultimately Pluto can also be perceived as the hand of fate, as the power of fate, and Venus's magnetism, the magnetism of our unconscious minds, because she is in the sign of Pisces. So if we have a strong desire, if we have a strong dream, and we somehow program that in our unconscious mind, well, it can move stuff, of course not physically, but in a fated karmic way in our lives, and we can just get what we desire. So this is actually quite a good energy. But if you are committed and in a stable relationship, be very careful, because you can manifest a third party situation and infidelity. As I said earlier, the sky doesn't care who or what it empowers, it just empowers. And this energy is also very good financially speaking. Again, Pluto in Capricorn, the power of money, the power of wealth and resources. It might enter your life in an unexpected way. Again, be careful what you wish for. But there might be also strings attached. There might also be compromises that you have to take or willing to accept. Or maybe the financial offer or the gift or an advantage, especially professionally in your career, might require some kind of long-term commitment. So you have to be careful how you manage this energy, especially if it starts popping up in your life. So my advice and guidance is, if you try your hardest to live life from the heart space, because the heart knows what is right and what is wrong for you personally, you will know how to work with this, and if you are willing to accept the compromises, or if they go against your morals, ideas, principles, or your spirituality, Neptune. Then finally, on the 20th and 21st of March, first the Sun followed by Venus enter into the sign of Aries, beginning Aries season. So I would like to wish a very happy birthday to all Aries natives out there. And this is a much needed energy shift, because finally this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the horoscope, when we finally sail out from the deep waters and the misty aura of Pisces, and we find ourselves embodying our passion. This is the energy of new beginnings. This is the energy to take action. This is the energy to listen to your gut, to your instincts. It is a very self-oriented energy, a little bit egocentric, but not necessarily in the bad kind of way. Because ultimately it's your life, so you have to get things done in your life, no one else. You are responsible to create new beginnings in your life. You are responsible to take initiative. You are responsible to express yourself, your desires, and do everything in your power to obtain them. This is also the energy of courage, bravery, self-confidence. This is where being outside of your comfort zone is much easier. It feels much more natural. It isn't as frightening, as intimidating, let's say, than in other times. This is also the energy of the inner child, because Aries represents the beginning. It is the very first sign of the zodiac, so it is primordial. It is deeply rooted in our genes. It is basically who we are instinctually, so without the conditioning, without the education, without everything that we learned, it is basically our raw, primal, almost animalistic selves, but that is nothing negative, that is nothing bad. As I said, this is a really good energy to just take initiative, to express yourself, to be brave, to be courageous, to go out there and do what it is that you feel like doing with confidence, trust. Venus in the sign of Aries also makes us extremely attractive. It makes us be more aligned than ever with whatever it is that we love, whatever it is that we desire, whatever it is that we are truly passionate about. And of course, the sun is very strong. It is able to bring out its higher qualities in the sign of Aries. So basically, this is the time to shine. This is the time to be number one in your life. This is the time to give the Caesar, the self, yes, even the ego, what it needs. And also because of the position of the other planets, we have a lot of spiritual support. Neptune in the sign of Pisces. So our intuition and our connection to source is definitely a guiding light from within us. And as I said, Mercury in the sign of Pisces is really good for emotional intelligence. And when our minds don't overthink as much, well, that means that the gut feeling, that means that our instincts are that much more precise and powerful. We have Saturn and Jupiter in the sign of Aquarius. So that means that our minds are still grounded in physical reality. We can see the big picture and we are fighting for our futures. And Jupiter, we are full of hopes and dreams. And if we are aligned to our principles and our own unique, distinctive worldviews, then we have every reason to be confident in ourselves and in our actions. And also, Aries is the home of Mars. And at this time, Mars in the sign of Gemini, the mind, the lower mind, the practical mind, communication, self-expression, learning, how we use our skills and talents, the intellectual ones mainly, perfect its harmonious, supremely harmonious conversation with Saturn. So that means that action is able to bring physical, down-to-earth, material results regardless of what that is. This is truly a moment we can serve our own interests, when we can make the right choices for us personally, when we serve the self as a diligent and responsible parent, because ultimately Saturn tells us that we were gifted with life, with our physical bodies, with all our skills and talents, with our thoughts, emotions, etc., in order for us to do something in this life, in physical reality, in order to evolve or have an impact or express ourselves or serve our soul missions. And that is a really good time for that. It is good work-wise because Mars is effort, Mars is energy, focus, intent, communication. Gemini, finding the right partners, finding the right people. Saturn can also be an influential person who helps us. Gemini is also siblings and cousins, so our family members can actually help us. Saturn can be your reputation. Saturn can be everything that you have achieved professionally or in any other way until this present moment, which can spread Aquarius, community, society, etc. And all of that can advantage you. So basically you have all the reasons to feel confident in order to embody the sun's expression and energy to just shine your light. This energy is also really good to get into shape physically, to do any kind of physical work, physical activities. Venus in the sign of Aries, it is also very flirty, a very, sexually oriented energy. This is when strong physical attractions and connections can take place. But of course, like every single energy, this also has a downside. And the downside is basically all of what I said in an extreme manner. So overconfidence, extreme courage, when your gut is telling you to do something which is maybe not the best idea to do. And also Venus in Aries, when your desires are actually obsessions and you cannot help it but just to try your very best to get them, achieve them, attract them. And Aries is also the sign of the warrior. And why I'm telling you all of this is because from a collective perspective, this may all be very, very empowering and harmonious, but just look at the present moment context. Saturn in Aquarius, rules, regulation, change of legislation, restrictions, all the controversy, human rights, freedom, etc. So people are gonna be definitely very angry. And this is where the anger is not just gonna be enacted on the internet. Because, Sun and Venus in Aries and Mars in Gemini, that is strong warrior energy. And they're gonna do everything in their power to fight for their freedom, to fight for their justice, to fight for their truth. Both Aquarius and Gemini are very, very non-conformistic. They adore freedom, and freedom is one of their greatest values in life. And they're able to do everything in order to protect freedom. So from a collective perspective, we kind of know what's coming. So this is also a warning sign to be very careful not to get sucked into this war, into the heat of the moment. And even if it's not, physically, as in going out on the streets and fighting, be also very careful what you speak and what you do, especially on social media, because Mercury in Pisces can also mean very uninspired words. It can also mean whatever you say is very susceptible to interpretation, misinterpretation. Mars in the sign of Gemini, Gemini the communicator, angry words. Or maybe what you want to express comes through in a rather aggressive way. So be very, very careful to control whatever it is that you speak. Or better said, think it through, feel it through before you express it, type it, before you hit that enter. And to complete this picture, last but not least, Mercury in the sign of Pisces is going to be holding a sextile with Uranus. And this is disclosure, this is truth coming out, this is revelation, this is seeing something that was hidden or kept secret. As I said at the beginning of the week, Mercury simply entering into the sign of Pisces. It is secrets coming out, but everything is very subjective, very susceptible to interpretation. But by the time we get to the end of the week, that is when the objective truth comes out. When that is the moment when it's not susceptible to interpretation, because Uranus can be facts, it can be data, it can be the physical reality just descending upon us. And Mercury in Pisces about the past, the recent past, about hospitals, about medical research, about secrets which have to do with immune system, And all of these symbolisms have to do with the sign of Pisces and also Mercury. So this is basically the coronavirus situation written in the stars. Something is going to see daylight about how this came to be, what really happened, something that was kept a secret or kept under a shroud of mystery. Personally, however, it's totally different. This can be a huge epiphany. This can be a soul level realization which leads you to breakthrough. It can also be really, really good financially because Uranus in the sign of Taurus, it is basically revolutionizing your own inner value system or outer value system. It can be finances, money, a bright idea which just comes through as a dream, Mercury and Pisces, or someone who belongs to your past, for example, family, a lifelong friend, can just inspire you with something really, really beneficial. It can be just an intuition, or it can be some kind of very lucky energy which has to do with your karma. So if you have any big epiphanies or realizations or bright ideas, or something that someone says just sparks up something inside of you, well, at least write it down. At least make sure that you have it available, because it can be the key to a financial breakthrough or something really, really beneficial to a major life change, for example. Well, this concludes your horoscope. I do hope that you enjoyed it and that you found it useful. Please remember, if things really get heated up, don't give in to the violence. Even if it's just a verbal battle, be sure to always think things through, or at least feel things through before you take action or you speak your mind and your opinion. Thank you so much for everyone, for listening, for all of your really kind, uplifting comments, and of course your support and donations. If you'd like to support my work and help my channel grow, you can find the PayPal link in the description below. Thank you once again. Until next time, bye for now.